Okay, we are good. All right, so now we've broadcasted live to Facebook, which you guys can always go back and watch the Facebook live. It's going to be in the group, the 2022 Orbit group. But now we're going to have the official recorded copy as well. So you will receive a link to this later, and you can watch the replay, many times as you'd like. And then, of course, we can have this available for people later as they are coming in too. So, wow, 25 people here. So excited that you guys are all coming in. So, super simple method for understanding your birth chart or your natal chart. So how many people are like brand new to astrology? You can put it in the chat. You can, say that you've never had an astrology reading, or you've never really delineated the chart at all. Or are you sort of like in that mid-level where you know your sun sign, your moon sign, maybe, your rising sign. So that way, you're sort of like inching into astrology a little bit more. Or maybe you've actually had an astrology reading, or you've studied astrology with an astrologer or somebody who's some sort of a mentor to you, or you've taken some online courses or something like that. And you're kind of like, okay, I want to know the next step. I want to know, like, what's my Venus mean, or what's my Jupiter mean, or what is my Black Moon Lilith mean, or what are all the asteroids out there? So if you want to throw that in the chat and just let me know. I know that we have had a few polls going on in the Facebook group, and it's interesting to see what people are interested in and where people are at. So yeah, we have a whole range of people, so the chat's going crazy right now. Yeah, new, very new, never had a reading. It sounds like people know, a decent amount about their chart. But even if you don't, that's totally fine. That's this workshop is really sort of intended for newbies who don't know much about astrology to sort of feel okay to take the next step. And for people who have looked at their charts before, or people who've sort of studied and they know their sun, moon, and rising, this is going to give you a whole new way to look at your chart in sort of a more intuitive and a more creative thinking aspect. So I'm going to get into it here. So I'm still new and learning. I've done a lot of self-study, took a beginning class online. Awesome. So it sounds like people are pretty, all across the board, but a lot of people really dedicated to wanting to know more, basically. I mean, that's why you're all here, right? Because you're curious and you want to know more. So looks like nobody else is trying to get in. So we can, all right, I'm going to get going here. All right, so this is the super simple method for understanding your natal chart. I should have picked a smaller title. So it is the most direct, though. I wanted to give people exactly what you are going to be learning today. So the main points of this workshop are why astrology is hard, why does it feel so intimidating to people, and what is the story of your chart? Because this is really the meat and potatoes of what is going to be happening with this presentation. I am as you'll see in my little introduction of who I am, I have a writing background, so I always think about things as character-driven or story-driven, or what is your own personal movie that's running in your life, and who are you playing? What type of hero are you in your own story? And then we're going to talk about who's at the table. So you're probably like, what does that mean? Don't worry, you'll see. We're going to talk about the basic grammar of your chart. So there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to be looking at, but they're not going to be totally overwhelming here. So they're going to be easy to break down, easy to sort of identify, and then you can sort of go in that direction when you can look at your own chart. And then we're going to sort of wipe out the complex aspects of it and just laser in on what is easy to look at and what is easy to learn. We're also going to talk about modern archetypes. So if you don't know what an archetype is, don't worry, we'll talk about that, because it really is going to help when you identify what are the archetypes that you know personally and you identify with in your everyday life. So we're going to look at some examples of these archetypes, and then of course we'll talk about how you really open the door to understanding astrology deeper, and really how to use astrology in your everyday life and how you can take the next steps to do that. So, great quote. I love this quote. The stories we live by have the power to shape our destiny. And that's what astrology is. It's a combination of what's written in the stars, so your destiny, right? The stuff that can't be changed, the stuff that you are innately born with. So a lot of people emailed me and said, what they're interested in and learning about their chart. And a lot of people said they're interested in learning their destiny or their gifts or their power, their personal power. And that is what is all encapsulated in this idea of your destiny. And it's all within your natal chart. So the stories we live by are within that natal chart as well. And the more you tell yourself the truth of your natal chart, and the more you understand that story that's in your natal chart, the more you are able to shape your own destiny. Now, there is this little debate in astrology between many astrologers. Is this idea of free will, or is everything preordained? Do we not have any sort of decision or choice? And a lot of astrologers are very, old school thinking, kind of like a stoic take on it, where you're just born with what you have in your chart and you can't change that, or you can't make any decisions to alter that. But I think that there is a balance between the two. You can make educated decisions, and you can actually maneuver the path of your own life, your own story, as you learn more about your natal chart and as you learn more about what that story is trying to tell you. So once you start believing that story, once you start understanding the details and who's in the story and what action is taking place and what energy is really present, you can see your destiny start to change, and you can see the life that you want to lead start to come into focus, because you can actually understand what that story is taking place and who you are in that story. So this is a great quote. I love it. I definitely live my life by this as well. So, and it really does show the power and magic of astrology. All right, so who am I? You're probably like, half of you know who I am. Half of you are like, never heard of you. This is the first time we've interacted together. So just a little bit of background here. I'm checking the chat real quick. So we are here because Jupiter in Pisces wants us to be here. Yes, so those of you who are a little bit more versed in astrology understand that Jupiter just went into Pisces yesterday. So that was a huge shift astrologically, and we all sort of felt it somewhere in our natal chart. So you can look at the Pisces part of your natal chart and then understand what Jupiter really is bringing into life for you. So a little bit about me before we dive into the actual talk. And that is my name. I'm Johanna. I am an astrologer. I am also a hula hooper. So we're not going to talk much about hula hooping in this presentation, because that's very specific to what I do exactly in my astrology practice. But just an idea about who I am. I'm a consulting astrologer. I have had my business since 2017 as an astrologer. I've actually been making hula hoops since like 2012, so a really long time. But I also have a screenwriting background. I went to college to become a screenwriter. I've written about 5 or 6 screenplays. And I am a researcher as well. That's really my focus as an astrologer, is to come up with different methodologies to teach astrology and to help people understand what is the most powerful aspect, what is the most important thing in their chart, so they can really utilize that to create much more empowerment and life satisfaction. That's really what I want to do to help people with astrology. So the things that I've contributed to astrology are the concept of Neptune and flow. Neptune is my most favorite planet. So if you are a little higher level astrology, if you're interested in that, that is where I focus my work on. And I've created hula hooping archetypes. So if you're interested in hula hooping, or if you want to learn archetypes in a different way, I've created that as well. Most of you have probably downloaded my 12 best astrology tools. If you are new to this group, then that was one of the first things that I posted in the group, is to get you some little tricks and tips and some resources out there to help. How many people have actually downloaded it or gotten anything out of it, or tried to check out some of those links? Because there's some really great stuff out there available for people. So you can put that in the chat if you want. My concept is astro flow. That's really what I focus on, and how you can get into flow with astrology and create more synchronicity, create more consistency, create more authenticity, awareness, acceptance, and all of that in your life. So that's my real focus in astrology. And then, yes, I am also the creator of crystal infused hula hoops. So that's a totally different thing going on, but I love hula hooping and I love the energy that it brings. That's why my business is called Orbital Astrology, the rotation of the hula hoop and all of that. Oh, yay, some people have hoops. Yay, so great. So if you're a hooper, you really understand the magic. You can see that connection between astrology and hula hooping of orbits and planets and everything moving around. Um, so yeah, awesome. People have downloaded that. It's so great. Really excited. Thank you guys for doing that. Okay, so we're in it, right? Now we're going to talk about why astrology is hard. Okay, so astrology is hard because it's actually a language that is being translated. So you are the translator when you come into interactions with astrology, because you're not just, it's not just served to you on a plate of pure intuition or pure understanding, because you're learning in another language. So like anybody who's learning a second language, there is a learning curve. There is a phase where you have to translate it. And so sometimes things get lost in translation, right? Because if the stars could just talk to us and we'd know exactly what they were trying to tell us, if we would know exactly how things show up in our lives, then that would be great, right? But for the most part, we are dealing with something not even of this world. We are ancient astrologers decided to look up in the sky one day and notice patterns, and they created an extremely complex methodology to translate those patterns and to create some type of meaning amongst the movement of the stars. So to think about that is an incredibly amazing feat that they created this system that we still use today. But the fact is, there is going to be a barrier between that. So as much as we all wish we could just go and like have a direct contact with what the stars want us to know, what our destiny is, what our strengths are, what our, how we need to live a better life, then we always have to have that step in between. So most people come to an astrologer so they don't have to do all that. But you guys are here because you want to actually learn more. So that's why I'm here to help you simplify this a little bit. So, astrology, it really is a correlation between star patterns. There is no actual proven causality yet. So scientists have not proven that stars, affect what people do. They obviously have made connections between, cycles and nature and the moon and the sun, but they have not made that connection yet. So astrology is not a science technically, but we are in the process, I think, of understanding that there is a correlation between events that happen in the sky and in the universe and what happens here in our lives. So that's really this incredible feat that ancient astrologers did. And that's why it's difficult. That's why it's a very hard thing to understand. It's layers upon layers of complex information. Now, the thing about astrology is, when you start to like tiptoe in there and you start learning, oh, I have a sun sign. Oh yeah, I'm a Pisces, or I'm a Leo, or I'm a Scorpio, or whatever. That's like the first layer. You're like, you've peeled the onion just barely. And then you realize, oh, I have a moon sign. Oh, I have a rising sign. Oh, okay, wait, I actually have an entire chart. And when I look at that entire chart, I don't even know what that even means, right? There's lines, there's symbols, there's numbers, there's degrees, there's glyphs, there's lines and connections, and I just don't know any of it. I mean, that's why it's difficult. The thing is, once you start reading the books, a lot of people have done a lot of self-study, so you start learning the significations of the planets, you start learning what all the different signs are. Then you're like, okay, I have to learn houses now, and I have to learn aspects too. It kind of becomes this stacking of keywords on top of keywords on top of keywords. So there's only so many keywords that your brain can really associate with each other until they lose meaning completely. Until you can actually connect those keywords to something in your life, or connect to a story that you actually resonate with, or that keyword actually means something to you, astrology is going to remain difficult. So having a breakthrough through all of these keywords, stacked on top of keywords, is what the purpose of this. Yeah, I get lost in the aspects. Seriously, the aspects are probably the most complicated aspect. I mean, astrology is a huge, huge world, right? So there's even things beyond aspects that you start learning. But yes, once you get to aspects, you're like, okay, I can't. Yeah, I don't know. So Don't worry, we're gonna look at our chart in a totally different way. Okay, so the trouble with learning from books, right? Most people here are self-study. Some people have taken some classes, but you know, when you first start learning astrology, you buy a few books. You start reading magazines, right? You start reading your horoscope, then you buy a year's forecast of just your sign. Then you start doing this, then you start doing that. But then you eventually hit a wall, right? You're like, I can't read any more books. Or you get to a book that is so over your head, you don't really, you're not able to really process it. So would you like to know what my wall was? When I was about 13 years old, I started studying when I was 10, but for a 10-year-old, I mean, what were you reading when you were 10? Comics, magazines, Little House on the Prairie. I mean, that's what I was reading. So, you know, if you were reading like Nancy Drew, or I don't even know what you guys are reading, but that's the type of stuff that I was reading. I mean, I was at 5th grade level reading. And then I started learning about Greek mythology, and my first introduction to astrology was through an actual picture book of Greek myths. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And all these gods and goddesses, they're so, and I could be like that, or maybe I could be, you know, I got so excited about the gods and goddesses and all of the stories that they were telling that I decided to make some connections between, you know, gods and goddess names. And then I learned that the Greek gods and the Roman gods were the same thing. And then I learned the planets were the names of the Roman gods. And I was like, oh, it's all making sense. You know, this is astrology, right? This is what it is. And I started making connections. But so this is all very fun, right, for a 10-year-old. But as I got older, I realized, okay, maybe there's a little bit more than just sun signs. What is, you know, I started digging around a little bit. And this is before, you know, like the internet got huge. So for those of you, I am an aging millennial. I'm like one of the oldest millennials. And so, you know, I wasn't really, you know, in the internet yet. It was like the mid 90s. So I picked up one of these actual books. Does anybody know what an ephemeris is? Or have you guys looked at an ephemeris before? For those of you who are more, you know, in-depth astrology students, or, yeah. Okay, so somebody's looked at an ephemeris. For those of you who don't know what an ephemeris is, I'm gonna show you. This is an ephemeris. It's basically a dictionary. It's a dictionary of astrological tables. So when you open it up, this is what you see. And it's just non-stop. Tables upon tables upon tables upon tables of numbers and symbols. So when I was 13, I picked this up, I opened it, and I shut it immediately. I was like, nope, I have no idea what this is. I'm never going to learn astrology. I am totally over my head. I'm not good at math. I don't even know what to do with these tables. I just want to know about me. I just want to know about my sign. I just want to know about like the stars and the gods and the goddesses. So I didn't actually open another astrology book probably for 10 years. And I was really upset, right? I didn't have any connections. I didn't have anyone there. That's why I said the trouble with learning from books is that it's a solo pursuit. You're by yourself. And I know a lot of people love learning from books, and I do too, but you sometimes get to the point where you have questions and you don't have anyone to ask. So that is the difficulty, especially learning astrology from books. You know, you just sort of get overwhelmed with it, right? When I look through this ephemeris, I was like, there's just math, numbers, there's too much data. I had like an overload sort of meltdown. I thought, okay, this is it, I'm done with astrology. And I didn't have any mentors really to ask any questions until later. And this was like mid 90s. So astrology was not really cool until about 5 or 6 years ago. So, I mean, there was kind of you know, this like first wave that happened in the 60s and 70s, but it kind of died out for a while. And then now we're having like this second wave of astrology, which is why I think so many people are excited about it, which is awesome. And I'm so excited to be part of it. But when you're a 10-year-old, 13-year-old in the mid 90s, and you don't have anyone to ask, or you don't have any online communities you can go talk to yet, books are really the only thing that you had access to. And it's really difficult to learn from books that way. So if you've had this moment as well, when you're studying astrology, you had no one to ask questions, you didn't really understand what was happening, I totally feel you. So that is part of why you're here. I'm assuming you're here to learn the next aspect of this. So this is what you have in your hand. Hopefully you all have a copy of your chart, and reading a Federal Register, literally. Reading an accounting book, or like accounting tables, just numbers basically. So then, once you have your first chart given to you, or you go online and you look it up, or if the chart that I sent you was your very first chart you've ever received, you were probably like, this is what I see. I see numbers and symbols and lines, and I don't know what any of it means, and it's really intimidating. So this is what I'm asking you to do, and I want you guys to think a little bit creatively outside of the box. I want you to use your imagination and think of your chart not as a chart. I want you to look at it and just pretend that there are no numbers, that there are no lines. It's just a circle, and that the planets and the glyphs are just dots. So that's all we're going to be looking at. We're just going to be looking at this as a circle with little dots on it. We're not even going to be talking about aspects. We're not going to be talking about any of the little data, the little math. There's no math involved in this presentation. So what I'm asking you to do is to think of this not as a chart, but to think of it as a table, a circular table. And who are the people sitting at the table? So these are the glyphs. You probably see these on your chart, and I told you, don't just ignore the glyphs, but pretend that the moon in your chart is not the moon glyph, but it's an actual person sitting at a table, and that the Venus in your chart is actually sitting across from the moon, or wherever it is in your chart. If you can identify these glyphs, just these three, the moon, Venus, and Mars in your chart, and see where they are sitting at that table. Are they sitting next to each other? Are they sitting across from each other? Are they sitting nowhere near each other? Are they sitting in any sort of relationship to each other at all? Or are they totally alone? And I want you to think about the glyphs, or these planets, which is what these are, Venus, the moon, and Mars, as people, not as planets or energies or anything. Think of it as somebody you may know, or somebody you may be sitting at a table with. Now, I like to use, this can be any sort of table you want to think about. It could be a table at a family event. It could be Thanksgiving table, if you have a bunch of planets all clumped together in one side of your chart. Think about them as like the rowdy side of the table. Where is all the energy happening? So you have a bunch of people sitting in this corner of your chart. They're all talking to each other, whispering to each other. They're all making jokes. And then you have someone at the other end of your chart, like the father figure, telling everyone to be quiet. So this is the type of energy I want you to think about as, what does your chart look like? What is the visual representation of who is sitting at your table? Now, I know a lot of you are like, well, I don't know what the moon means, or I don't know what Venus means, or I don't know what Mars means, or what the characteristics are. Well, don't worry, we're going to get into it. For now, I just want you to look at that chart as something that is not a chart, that is something in real life, something that you can imagine in your head. I also like to think of this as a table of strangers too. Like, imagine if you were sitting at a table at an airport, or at a cafeteria, or you had to work together with all of these energies, with all of these people, with all of these planets. They're forced to be together because that's what's happening in your natal chart. These planets were doing their thing, and then you just decided to be born. So therefore you had to have a signature, and these planets all had to work with each other on that exact moment that you were born. So they came into contact with each other. They came into this exact moment as if they were sitting at a table talking about something, talking about you, planning your life out. So this is like the business table, and everyone, Venus is over here saying, oh, what type of love life is this person going to have? And, Moon's over here, well, don't talk about their love life, just raise them right. And Mars is over here saying, yeah, let's make sure they go and become the greatest athlete ever. Yeah, let's go do the thing. I want to kick some ass. Yeah, woohoo. So those are the types of energies we're looking at. Now, you were having these types of personalities all having a big discussion at this table together about you. That's really what we're looking at. That's what your chart is really saying. Now, another way you can look at this is to think about an actual cafeteria room. Think about who sits at the cafeteria table when you were a kid, when you went to school. And I know that cafeteria tables aren't circular, or some are, but for the majority of the time you have, long tables. But you can think about this as what types of personalities sit together, especially when you're really little, right? You don't usually sometimes get to choose where you sit. They've sort of forced you to sit next to somebody, right? So you have lots of different personalities sitting at a table. You have lots of different people talking to each other. You have the shy kid, maybe. You have the kid who won't shut up, the kid who just talks and talks and talks. You have the kid who's trying to trade food with the other kid. You have the kid who's trying to tell jokes. You think about these planetary energies. What are the people in your life, and how do these planets represent that person? The person who's talking all the time, that's Mercury. That's the planet of communication. The little boy who's trying to say, oh, who wants to be my girlfriend, or always trying to like chat up the next person next to them, or talk to, create a relationship with somebody else. That's Venus, or that's Mars in your chart. Masculine energy and feminine energy. So you have the boys and the girls, and of course the gender is a spectrum, and yes, astrology is kind of black and white sometimes, but you also have a combination of all of these energies sitting at the table, working together or fighting with each other, right? Cafeteria tables don't necessarily create peaceful situations. um, so that's the type of energy you can also look at, like who's sitting at the table of your chart, and where are they sitting. So look for some visual cues if you have your chart in front of you. And these are the cues. Hold on. Okay. So where are your planets clumped together? Do you have a big, if you want to put this in the chat, you can go right ahead and do that. Do you have a big clump of planets that are all hanging out together? So, within a few, and don't worry about the degrees or anything, if they're all just sort of like sitting there, if you have 4 planets next to each other, or just planets all in the same sign. Are there some planets who are by themselves? So who are your lonely planets in your chart? If you have one that's all by itself, you can put that in the chat. And you can think of that planet as sort of being in its own world, sort of acting like as a solo person. I mean, there's always an introvert, right? There's always an introvert at the table. There's always an introvert in your class. There's always an introvert in your chart, and that may be you, right? Check the chat real quick. Yeah, so we have Venus and Mars are close, Moon on the other side. Yep, we have a bunch of people have a huge group. A lot of people have huge groupings of planets. It's not very uncommon to have a bunch of clumps together, right? Especially once you start adding in asteroids, which I did add some asteroids in for you. Mars and Moon alone. Yeah, so you can sort of see where this is going. You can see where the energy is being focused. You have a lot of planets in one area of your chart or one area of the table. You can see that, yeah, there's a big conversation happening there. What's going on in that area of your chart? What are the people talking about? What are the planets talking about in your chart? Because they're all going to be working together in that sort of, or fighting together, whatever. And if you guys got the workbook I sent you, I gave you some cheat sheets on the houses. So that way, when we get a little bit deeper, you don't feel like totally overwhelmed. The point of this presentation is not to get you to like memorize a bunch of stuff. It's just to get you to think about your chart in a more sort of organic way and a more intuitive way. You can always refer to cheat sheets. You can always refer to books and keywords and lists and everything like that. So don't worry about that. I actually recommend looking at books or referring back to books when you're sort of struggling. I mean, I think most astrologers who are professionals still do a lot of that as well. So instead of thinking of, or who's hanging out at the, what I wrote, who's hanging out at the popular cafeteria tables? So there is a part of your chart where the popular kids are, right? You can see who is going to be demanding the attention. And if you look at your chart, which I'm going to show you an example. So you can see that there are angles in your chart. They kind of look like perpendicular intersections, the way it breaks up the chart into 4 different sections. There's a line here at the very bottom, and then it goes all the way through to the top on the other side. Then you can see on the left side of your chart, the line going horizontal, and it goes all the way through to the other side of your chart. Those are the cardinal directions in an astrological chart. And if you have planets near those 4 intersections where it reaches the outside of the circle, those are the planets that are going to be demanding your attention in some way. Those are the popular planets, because the planets that touch what are called the angles of your chart, or those 2 crosses, or I guess they're 4 crosses, or 4 points, are going to be highlighted. People want to be looked at. Those planets want to be looked at. So who are the popular planets in your chart? Especially at the very top of the chart. That line going up to the very top of your chart, which is called the midheaven, that is the most public place in your chart. So that's where people look at you, where you have a professional or some sort of public persona. So that's where all the popular kids are at your table. So you can definitely look at your chart that way as well. Is everybody following along okay? Does anybody have any questions you want to put?
Dark magic that happens when that family is together. Blood-laying serpents, maggots. Now I hear there's
looks like someone has their someone is not on mute. So if you guys can just check your microphones. If you have no popular kids, no worries. Not everybody's a popular kid, right? That means that your planets aren't going to be screaming in your face, demanding your attention. All of the planets are going to be present in our lives, but those points on your chart are kind of sensitive. They're a little bit extra. So I just wanted, and don't worry, we don't have to focus exactly on that, but here, let me just mute real quick. Okay, cool. So no worries if you don't have popular kids at your table. It's fine. All of your planets have meaning, and no planet is better than the other. Just like your teacher will tell you, right, when you're in school. All right, so what's the conversation? And a lot of people talked about aspects, right? Aspects are one of the most complicated things for beginners, or even intermediates. Well, instead of thinking of, just sort of as a reference, an aspect in your chart is what all these red and blue lines are in the middle. Those are the aspects. Now, so instead of thinking about them as like degrees and triangles and trines and sextiles and all the technical language, think of them as conversations that are happening between the people at your table. Who's in front, who's across from you at the table? Are you having a debate with somebody? Are you confronting them because you are across from them? Or are you whispering to them because they're kind of like right next to you and they can hear what you're saying? Are you in cahoots with them? Are you passing notes to them? That's a positive sort of like fun thing to do. And so you can think of it as a positive exchange instead of a negative exchange. So think about the conversations that these planets or these people are having in your life. Are you having, direct conversations if the planet is across, or if you are not having any conversations? Like you say, you have a lonely planet that's by itself, that's not making any sort of aspect or having any conversation, then you have that type of energy as well at your table. So hopefully you can have some sort of visual of what your table looks like right now, who's at your table, what are the personalities there, and so forth. So are they yelling at each other? Are they passing treats? Or love notes to each other? Are they playing telephone? Are they like winking at each other with a secret like shared that they only those 2 people know? So this is a great way. This is kind of like a really awesome breakthrough that I had when I started thinking about the chart this way and what's in the chart. So, you can always, screenshot this or you can watch this later, but this is really a key slide because the planets are going to be, if you break down the planets as actual grammar in your chart, or as parts of sentences, right? I'm gonna take a drink. That's a great way to think about this. It's a much, much more simple way to understand your chart. And this is the planets. The planets, always where you start in astrology is planets. And I know a lot of people start with signs, but when you really start learning astrology, you go back to planets first. So the planets are the who in your chart. Like we said, they're like the people at the table. They are the characters in the story. They're the actors in a movie. They are the one creating action or doing something. So the planet is in your chart and it's actually creating some type of energy. It's creating a motion, a forward motion, or setting something into place. The signs are actually the what part of the sentence. So what is happening? So the planets are doing something, but what are the planets doing? So the sign the planet is in is going to show how that action is taking place. Is it extremely is it extremely violent? Is it more laid back? Is it very meticulous? Is it fun? Is it serious? You can think about that. How does the sign create the action out of the elements of that sign, the raw materials of that sign? How does the sign color or flavor the planet? Because the sign will always modify the planet in some way. And we'll go into this. I did show you, this is actually in the next slide. So you can reference your workbook as we go to the next slide. The houses are the where part of your grammar, of your chart. So where is this action taking place? So the modification that's happening through the sign. So what's the scene? If it's, you're thinking about this as a movie, what is the scene that's taking place? The actor is acting out, you know, in a romance movie, or the actor is proclaiming their love to Juliet in ancient Verona, right? So that's where it's taking place. So the houses is where the story is happening for you. So if you're looking at your chart, then you can look at the actual place. Every single house has different significations, and that's why I gave you that cheat sheet. So you can always go look, like we already talked about, if you have a clump of planets in that house, that's the story, that's where the story is taking place. So all of those significations of that house is the where. It's the environment that those planets are trying to get things done in. The aspects are the how. How is that happening? What's the interaction between the planets? We already talked about the conversation that's happening between them. How are things shifting? How are they changing? And how are they working together? Because sometimes, you know, it adds that extra level of complication. So we will go more into this. So this isn't, we don't want to get stuck on this role because there's definitely more, right? The planet. So each planet has a character, a personality trait. What do they want to accomplish? Oops, typo. What's the overall purpose in their lives? You can think of a planet as yourself. You can think of it as what is it trying to do? If you don't have planets in some signs, that's totally fine because you still have a sign that's in a house. So every sign is still relevant to you, and every house is still relevant to you in some way. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't have, you know, anything in Capricorn, or I have nothing in Pisces, so therefore I'm not Piscean at all, or I'm not Capricorn at all. Wrong. You are every sign in the zodiac because you have every sign in the zodiac in your chart. And just to clarify, we are talking about the, well, you know what, actually you can use this in either the sidereal or the Western, the sidereal or the tropical zodiac, because I know someone had a question about the difference between sidereal and tropical. So the chart that I sent you is a tropical chart. So if you are a sidereal astrology student, then you will have a different chart than the one I sent you. But you can use this same technique in sidereal astrology as well. So yes, don't worry if you don't have planets in some signs. That doesn't mean you don't have that type of energy. You just have, we're not going to focus on the empty houses right now, or the empty signs. We're just going to think about planets, and then we'll talk about signs. So the planet is trying to do something, right? So how are they interacting with the others? Why are the planets here? If you think about character development, which is what I think about as a writer, what actions, what do they want? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to carry out? The sign is the what. So what is the expression of the who? What is the personality of that what? So if we're talking about Mars, which is wanting to be passionate, it wants to go do something, then if it's in this a specific sign, it's going to be doing the thing that it wants to do in a different type of way. So by what means does the planet try to get what it wants? What's the emotional expression of the planet? Which is why I chose this image here, because each of the signs, you can think of each of the signs as one of these faces. I mean, there's not 12 of them here, but you can think of how the sun would express itself in a different sign. You know, we have like the scared person here, and I'm not gonna totally generalize or stereotype each sign to the point where you're just this emotion, but you know, you can think about that. Like you can think about sort of happy-go-lucky type energy. You can think about anxiety. You can think about you know, what signs are associated with each. You can think about the overall energy of the signs for each of these. So how does the sign color or flavor the planet's action? You can also think of this as what type of mask is that planet putting on. It has to be expressed in some way. So what type of mask does it choose? Does it choose a happy mask? Does it choose a sad, aggressive, concerned? These are all descriptors. You can think of it as an adjective describing a noun. It's also think of this as a filter. You can think of it, the sign as filtering the planet's energy through it. So I like to think of this, if you're not, you know, digging this sort of literary grammatical expression, you can think of it as color, the planet as colors. And if you look in your workbook, then you will see that I've included, I think 5 of the planets and them as color schemes, and we'll see what that signifies. Now, if anyone knows about art or about the color wheel, you can sort of see how there are different shades of colors, but we all know that there are different shades of colors. So Mars is, these are some keywords for Mars, right? So if we talked about the planet or the person or the who as wanting to be the warrior, the hero, the fighter, the aggressor, debater, these are all keywords for Mars. So what color would you associate with all of these things, right? This was supposed to be an animation and the red was supposed to pop up, but you know, the risk taker, the person of power, if you see someone wearing like red lipstick, you can see them like, you know, being confident or like being sexual or dangerous. That's what the psychology of colors actually shows us. So you can think of that Mars as being the color red. When we talk about Mars being in all the different signs, we can see how the shade of that red changes. So we can look at how it's being modified here. We can see that Mars can be strong in specific signs. You can see how Mars is really red in Scorpio. You can see how Mars is like perfectly red in Aries. And why is that? Because Mars is very, very happy in these signs. It's expressing itself the best in these 2 signs, Scorpio and Aries. It also is, you know, creating some sort of diffusion in these other signs. So in Libra, it's not very red. It's more purpley. It's kind of turned a little bit bluer, right? We turned the red into more of a purple or more of a blue. And then down here in Cancer, we can see it really, really turning to blue or really, really turning purple. And that's because Mars is not happy in Libra or in Cancer because it can't express itself as brightly, as purely, basically, as it does in Scorpio and Aries. So you can think about this. If this, you know, resonates more with you, then you can sort of see how each planet changes to a different shade of color in each sign, and how strong that planet is based on that color, and how does that show up for you. So hopefully everybody is, how's everybody doing? Is everybody sort of, oh my gosh, we're already at almost an hour. Okay. If anyone has to leave, I'm not going to be offended. You can definitely watch the replay, but we are just going to sort of get through this. So I love thinking about the signs as shades of color. I love thinking about them as flavors. Also, I also love thinking about them as timbre. So if you have a musical background, you can think of the different sounds that instruments make. You can think about the warm sound of a clarinet versus like the sharp sound of keyboard or the xylophone, something like that. You can see how playing the same notes on different instruments is going to change the overall feeling of it, the overall expression of it. And that's very similar to how the planets are expressed in different signs. So you will get a totally different expression of Mars in Libra or Mars in Scorpio. And that's why astrology is so complex, right? That's why when you meet somebody who is, has Mars in Libra, is you see them dealing with confrontation and you see them dealing with aggression in a very different way, a much more sort of passive way, as like, I don't want to have confrontation. I will try to avoid confrontation instead of just punching you right in the face, right? So that's going to be a totally different expression of Mars. So yes, you can definitely check out the rest of them. I did the moon, the sun, Venus, and Mercury in your handouts. You can look at that, just sort of look at it and see what comes to you. I mean, colors are very sort of emotional and evocative, and so are signs. So thinking about that, you can start looking, yeah, Mars and Libra here, right here. So we're moving on to the houses, which is the where. What area of life is the energy of these planets and signs? Where is that being focused? Do you have a big clump? We already talked about this. You have a big clump in a specific house. That's the scene that's being taken place in your life. Life's happening in many different places. I mean, we have a different life than we have at home. We have a different life at work than we have at home. We have a different relationship with our family than we do with our partners or our kids, or our work acquaintances. So the planets are bringing energy and attention to all these different places. And this is, again, if you have an empty house, then don't worry. It doesn't mean you don't have anything going on in that. There's a total different energy going on instead. We're not going to get into that in this, but because we're trying to keep it simple, right? So where's the story taking place? So think of settings for movies, books, songs, your favorite stories that you take place. Are you a huge Disney nerd that you love thinking about these fantasy worlds, or like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones? Are you that type of person that loves thinking about fantasy worlds? Or are you like more of the detective type of person, like film noir or historical fiction, stuff like that? So think about these settings that these movies or books or songs or stories are taking place, and you can use that as a correlation between what type of energy, what type of story is taking place in your chart. Okay, so the how. How are the planets interacting with each other? What conversations? How are they helping or hurting each other? And what are the plot twists and challenges, and the diversions that are happening? So you see things going on with the aspects in your chart, but you can think of those as plot twists. Sort of the story that you're creating in your chart is going to have bumps in the road. And usually it's going to be between different characters in a movie or in a story. So that's how you can look at the planets in your chart, interacting with each other with aspects. So really, we're all coming down to, what is the story your chart is telling? What story are the planets, the signs, the houses, aspects all coming together? And think about what stories you really relate to, because this is kind of key in the whole philosophy of this, this method. Once you actually start thinking about your favorite movie, your favorite book, your favorite stories, your favorite TV series, whatever really speaks to you, what do you really nerd out on? This is, and I use movies because I'm, a film nerd, but I think we are a society of media. We all have a favorite thing that we're watching or consuming or following or whatever story that we are working with. That is really what we want to be focusing on. If you have something that's really important to you, start thinking about that. Start thinking about what your favorite stories are, what your favorite mythologies are. And we're going to talk about modern myths. So you can start noticing what plot lines are in your own life. And then you can find these in your chart as well. So just noticing, observing, taking part of this is a great way to start understanding your chart a little bit more. Also, what characters keep showing up in your life? Do you have recurring characters that are coming back in, that are teachers that are coming back to teach you lessons? Do you have friends that keep repeating, like similarities in your friends? What's the atmosphere in the different areas of your life? These are all sort of things you can think about your favorite movies, your favorite films, your favorite books. So really, this is all about mythologies and archetypes. The ancients had, the ancient Greeks had theater, so they could carry out the plays. They had actors who were very popular. I mean, now we have something, we have recording now, so we can go back and watch the movie 100 times. Back in the ancient ways, the Greeks only had one opportunity to see a story being presented to them. But we really have a way to go actually and look at these recurring stories. A lot of people couldn't read, a lot of people were not literate, so they had to rely on the actors, on people telling them what to do. We have our own ability to read. We have our own ability to listen to live music and recordings. So in the ancient times, the ancient myths were gods and goddesses. What are the modern myths that we can look at? Heroes and celebrities, right? So we have these things in our lives. Who are the modern day gods of our lives? Politicians, celebrities, actors, musicians. These are the people that we look to now for our modern mythology, the bigger than life personalities. So this is an example, right? So ancient Venus archetype. This is the actual Venus de Milo Botticelli painting versus a modern Venus. And I'm sure you all know who this is. If you don't, then this is Adele. But we can see the similarities between what Venus is telling us. What is the archetype? What is the mythology of Venus? And how it was expressed in the ancient times and how it's expressed now in modern times. Beauty, love, attraction, relationships. Adele is very well known for singing about relationships. So that is how this modern Venus is being expressed. So we are going to look at some modern examples of these archetypes. So we're going to use Venus. So if everybody wants to find Venus in their chart, that would be awesome. You don't have to, because you can sort of just follow along. But we're going to be using Charlize Theron as the planet Venus, and the archetype and the energy, the who is love and femininity. So we'll be looking at the different characters that she has played in specific films as expressions of the signs. So Venus in film, Venus in the signs. So everybody grab your chart and you can follow along. Now, just a disclaimer, I don't want to tell everybody that you are just exactly like this character she has played, because we are talking about myths, we're talking about archetypes. These are like condensed symbols in our lives that we sort of look to as being iconic. They're just characters, so don't be offended if I've picked one. The one that's in your sign is, is not what you thought it would be, or if it's something. This is just a character, so here we go. Venus and Pisces. I always do Pisces first because we are so used to being the last. So as a Pisces, I'm taking a stand and doing Pisces first. So Venus and Pisces, Charlize Theron, the character she played, this is a very old, I guess an old movie, pretty old movie, called Sweet November. It's with Keanu Reeves and Charlize Theron. The character she played was Sarah Deaver. Basically, the context is she's dying of cancer, so she decides to have a relationship with somebody every single month of her life until she passes away. I've only watched it once, and it was a long time ago, so if I'm getting it totally wrong, I apologize. If this is your favorite movie, please go ahead and correct me in the chat. So the themes is love, right? So how does love being expressed in this movie? And how is love being expressed through Pisces? Now, Pisces is associated with martyrdom, sacrifice. So she's really sacrificing her life to the expression of love, to helping the people that she's in a relationship become a better person. So sacrifice is a key word. Purity, selflessness, surrender, sometimes impermanence, right? Because it's just flowing through your life in a very Pisces way. So thinking about this archetype of Charlize Theron in Sweet November is very much a Venus in Pisces. So we can think about these as modern day expressions of the planets in the signs. Venus in Aries, go figure, right? If you've all seen Mad Max, you probably have decided that this is a great archetype for a Venus and Aries. So if you have Venus and Aries, you probably relate to this a little bit. You know, love as protection. How is love being expressed through Aries? Taking the ultimate risk, right? She sacrifices her safety basically by smuggling out all the other wives who are captive, right? She wants to free them so they aren't subjugated to horrific things. She has incredible courage, bravery. Love is brave. Love is courageous. Non-traditional feminine love, because we see her as a non-traditional female. Venus and Aries expressed is very much a feminine and a masculine sign. So a woman in a masculine role. That's a hero love. So loving somebody who's a hero or being heroic in your relationship, that's a Venus and Aries archetype. So if these are sort of resonating with you, you can sort of put them into your mind as that's exactly what, an archetype is. That is my modern day mythology of how I can understand my own chart. Finding these images, finding these representations is going to really help you understand your chart in a much deeper way. Venus and Taurus, the Devil's Advocate. So Charlize Theron, this is like one of her first movies, or first American movies, but she's represented as this beautiful, like sensual, sort of innocent, but very, intrigued by the good life. So Venus and Taurus is all about material luxury. So love is temptation. Like she feels tempted in this movie. She with this high life, I mean the whole movie is about temptation, but she kind of is the side effect that gets the short end of the stick in this. But she really is confronted with what is more important in love. Do I choose luxury? Do I choose whining and dining, loving the finer things? Love is sensual and physical pleasure. I mean, all of these themes come up for her in this movie, and love is traditional and beautiful. So Venus in Taurus is very happy there. It wants to be there. If you look at your cheat sheet, you can see that the color green in Taurus is like very vibrant. It's very pretty. It's like the ultimate green, the coloration of that expression of Venus. Venus in Gemini is young adult. If you've watched Young Adult, it's a hilarious movie. The archetype is Mavis Gary. She is kind of an aging mean girl. So that idea of love is being petty, like she tries to steal the guy from her. She tries to steal back her old high school sweetheart. And we like to think of Gemini as being like the ultimate teenager. So Venus and a teenager's type of sign can be sort of like, yeah, love is teenage. Love is only skin deep. Love is a status symbol. Love is, getting bored with love easily, that type of thing. The thing about Venus is in Gemini is it's very changeable. So you can think about that. No offense if you have a very long-term relationship and you have Venus in Gemini. So yeah, it's not as a life or death situation type of energy is with Venus in Gemini. So her expression in this movie is pretty hilarious. About Venus in Cancer, another expression is the movie Tully, where Charlize Theron plays a mother who's dealing with postpartum issues. So this is really love is motherhood. Love is a sacrifice and emotional toil. Love is deep. Love is fulfilling, totally overwhelming sometimes. Love is nurturing. Love is tears. So these are all ideas that are expressed through Cancer when Venus is in Cancer. Venus and Leo, Snow White and the Huntsman. So Charlize Theron plays the queen, and I'm sorry if this is like, if you were like, no, I'm not her. Don't worry. I know she's an evil character in this movie, but she does show some interesting qualities of Venus and Leo. Obviously, the queen is the most stereotypical, right? But love is powerful. Love is gold. Love is loving of thyself, right? She looks into the mirror and says, who's the fairest on the wall? She's looking at herself. She's looking at her own beauty as power. She's obviously looking at love as royalty. Love is survival. She's using it as a survival skill. Love is celebratory. Leo likes to celebrate love, and life. So if you have Venus and Leo, you're going to be thinking about celebrating that love. Love is to be worshipped. Love is a little bit dramatic. Yes, there's the Leo stereotype. Love is a little dramatic. All right, sorry. I'm going to keep going through this a little bit. I know we're, coming up. Okay, it's still only an hour, so we'll probably go a little bit longer, maybe 90 minutes or so. So yeah, Venus and Virgo, North Country. Have you seen this movie? It's a little bit older, but I really kind of wanted to point out the reason I picked Charlize Theron is like she really does incredible morphing into different characters in all of these different movies. So when we think about the planets being expressed in totally different ways, even though, she is a straight white woman, yes, I know, but she is expressing her acting ability in totally different roles. These are incredibly varied roles, which really shows how planets can be incredibly varied in many different signs. So, North Country, Venus and Virgo, Josie Ames. This is actually based on a true story, which is why I kind of picked it for Virgo. Virgo likes facts. Virgo likes to actually understand that there is a purpose to something. They're like, why would I read a fiction book when I can read nonfiction? So the thing about Venus and Virgo is they understand the difficulty with love, and that love is hard. Love sometimes is a struggle. If you've watched this movie, you basically watch her go through every type of struggle that you can possibly go through as a female. I'm not going to get into the details because it's pretty a harrowing movie when you really look at what she has to deal with. But Venus and Virgo understands that sometimes love is not about grand expressions. It's about fighting for what you want. It's about justice and fighting for what's really right and what matters. Love is humble. Venus and Virgo is a very, very humble expression of love, which is not terrible, but Venus does like to be very flowery and traditional in its traditional expression. So when Venus is in Virgo, it doesn't get to do that. It gets to be suppressed in some way. And if you watch the movie, you see Josie being suppressed in many, many different ways in her relationships, in her job, family. You can kind of see in the picture. If you haven't watched the movie, she's standing up as this only solo woman in front of a huge group of men. The story is that I think she works in a coal mine, and she's one of the first women to have a job there. And so she has to deal with an incredible amount of just backlash in many, many different ways. Sexism, obviously. But so yeah, Venus and Virgo kind of feels that struggle and feels that love sometimes is hard and sometimes you have to fight for it. Venus and Libra. So this just came out, I think, last year or 2 years ago, called Long Shot. She plays a Secretary of State who falls in love with, or starts a relationship with her old, I guess technically, kids she used to babysit, but they're adults now. But obviously, so it's a comedy. But really, Venus and Libra is a very traditional place. Venus likes to be in Libra. It's very easy. It's very flowing. It's very conversational. But it really is very focused on the partnership because that's what Libra is all about. So in this movie, she is she hires this guy as her speechwriter to help her, and they eventually, fall in love. I actually haven't seen the whole thing, so if you know more about it, then definitely post that in the comments. And yeah, so love is communication, love is humor, love is traditional, love is artistic, love is lighthearted, love is easy, love is flowing, love is funny. So this movie is also a comedy. So Venus and Libra feels much more easy there instead of being sort of constricted the way it is in Virgo. So someone said they had Venus and Virgo. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like that's true, or am I like totally? You don't have to answer. I don't want to, put people on the spot if they. I mean, this is pretty personal, right? This is our love life. This is how we want to be loved. So Venus and Scorpio. I apologize for all the Venus and Scorpios out there. You are like no about this. Another true story. Honestly, I think this is one of her most amazing performances. She completely transformed her entire body, her entire look, her entire the performance is one of the most amazing. I think she won an Oscar for it. I don't remember. Love is revenge. Love is misunderstood. Love is loss of power. Love is trying to get power. The whole story is her struggle to find power, to find her own way, to find her own sense of empowerment. And it's kind of, she has to go through a lot of ugly, terrible things. Once again, this is a very harrowing movie. It's about a lot of triggering issues, so watch it at your own risk. But it is an incredible performance by Charlize Theron. But Venus and Scorpio does not shy away. that's why I put this out there, because this movie does not shy away from any sort of depths of human emotion. And neither does Venus and Scorpio. So you think of like Venus and Libra as being a little bit lighter. Venus and Scorpio was a lot darker, and this movie is very dark. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who has Venus and Scorpio is subjected to whatever terrible things happen in this movie, but there is that sort of deep understanding of um, the depths of the human soul. When you are so intimately connected to somebody and you're so sort of enmeshed in their world, it can be scary, right? You can go to this sort of dark place. Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad someone is not terribly offended by that, because I really love this movie, and her story is just so heart-wrenching, and it really does show how, yeah, how intense, right? You said it in the chat that it was just a very intense movie, and it does feel very intense having Venus and Scorpio. So moving on, Venus and Sagittarius, much lighter. I think of her as Charlize Theron in The Italian Job, where she is the daughter of an art thief, I think, and she's like learns how to like technically she's a safe technician or something. Basically, she knows how to open safes, break into safes. She's also really fun. It's like a really fun, fast moving. It's set in Italy, so a Sagittarius is associated with like foreign countries and exploration and adventure. So love is fun, love is changeable, love is exciting, love is fast, love is wild, love is free, love is smart. Love can take place far away. So a lot of Venus and Sagittarius have, their partner they met in another country, or they live in another country, or they had a love affair somewhere in another country. So it also can be that love is justice as well, because Venus in Sagittarius is concerned with justice and truth. So Venus and Capricorn, we're almost done. Venus and Capricorn, if you guys watched Bombshell, another true story, very much Megyn Kelly, right? So anyone who has Venus and Capricorn understands that love is work, love is dedication, love is strategy. Sometimes you can be married to your career with a Venus and Capricorn, because Megyn Kelly's career was just so iconic, and what she went through at Fox News was just so crazy. But it was not romantic, right? Love is purpose. Venus and Capricorn does not want flowers, and I mean like they don't want empty expressions of love. They want to have purpose and strength. Love is dissolving illusions, and love is gaining power and respect, right? Because that's what Venus and Capricorn really wants. Okay. Yeah, I bet it does. I have Venus and Capricorn too, so it's difficult, right? Because you think of when people expect you to act in a Venus type way, they think of you as to expect you to act in a very soft, feminine, whatever. But sometimes you can see that planets in specific signs are not expressing themselves traditionally, or expressing themselves in what people think that they should be doing, because every single sign is a different color, different expression, flavor, as we talked about earlier. So Venus and Aquarius, I looked up Atomic Blonde. I've never actually watched this movie, but the things I could tell from the storyline and the script and the videos that I were watching is that she's a secret agent or a spy. So she has to sort of, I don't know, put love on a different sort of a compartmentalized place, or as a chess piece, or as a pawn in her bigger plan. So love is a side effect. Love is impartial. Love is a chess piece. Love can be used strategically. Love is universal. So this is also an expression of love that's not so personal. It's not so like intimate in a way that you're totally lost in it. You can sort of keep this barrier, keep some sort of separation between yourself. She has to go out and do her job despite the fact that she may be in love, or she may be in a relationship. So it's a detached type of love. Love is also forward thinking. She's able to really go where she needs to go, do the things she needs to do. It's a very empowered place, not being a victim of love. It's a very strong and non-traditional place for Venus and Aquarius. All right, so I know we still have about 10 more slides, so I might just sort of go through this um, a little bit quick. So as you can already see, we've looked at these movies where the actor is the planet, the character that they're playing in the movie is the sign, so the expression that the actor is giving, the setting, and yeah, I think someone commented it could be the costume that they're playing, so that's the same thing, that's the role, right? The setting or the genre, so you can think of action, or you can think of historical or political or documentary or romance as being the setting or the house that it's in. Um, you can think of like the first house as being a documentary, like talking or being maybe an interview. The first house can be sort of an interview about who that person is. Um, you know, there's a lot of things we can go into as far as the houses, but always check your cheat sheet. Always go back to that, sort of get you into an idea about what house you want to be looking for. The plot and the story, all the things that happen in the movie, the twists, the turns, the peaks, the valleys, the ending, the beginning, that's all the aspects. That's what's happening in your chart. Whew, okay, I'm gonna have another drink of water before we go. Okay, we're almost at the end, you guys. So you don't have to use movies. I use movies because that's what I am passionate about. That's what I am able to find the most connection to as far as archetypes, for modern day archetypes. Well, what are you passionate about? If it's not a movie or a book, you can find these representations in every single interest. What do you really nerd out on? Because that's really you're going to find the deepest connection to astrology and what you love to do. Do you love cooking? What types of food do you love to cook? What is your favorite thing? How can you find expressions of these planets and signs and the houses and the aspects between all of the different things that you cook, between all the different foods that you love? What type of restaurants do you like to go to? So think about these things that really mean something to you. If you're like super into witchy stuff, I'm sure you could think about a million different types of crystals and all their personalities. My friend Anna, who is our crystal healer as part of the Orbit membership, she could probably describe the crystals that she uses as like they were her friends, right? So think of it on that level. Um, who can you describe personally, as if they were a real person? So tarot decks and your candles, altars, all these different things. If you're really into that, you can apply this technique to something that you're really passionate about. Of course, it could be anything: sports, pets, crafting, politics, fashion, art, all of that stuff. So just think about this. What do you really nerd out on? And start noticing that. So the point of this is to start noticing patterns. That's what we really do. And what the purpose of the Orbit membership in 2022 is going to be doing is using astrology planners to start tracking transits and how they are affecting you personally in your own life. So I wanted to share this with you because it's kind of fun, right? I looked at every single person who requested a chart for this workshop. I did all your charts, I sent them all out, and I wanted to see what was the most popular sign who was coming to this workshop, or who requested their chart. And so this is the makeup. This is the astrological makeup of this webinar. And this was, what was the most dominant sign to sign up for a birth chart? And by a whopping, overwhelming victory, it was Cancer. So the majority of people who asked for their birth chart were Cancers in this workshop, followed by a three-way tie between Pisces, Scorpio, and Virgo. So I love doing this with astrology and collecting data and noticing the patterns. So can anybody tell me what the pattern is here? What's the common denominator between all of these? If you're new to astrology, don't worry. I'm not trying to break your brain here. But if you're a little more complex, if you're a little bit more study, you can see that. Yes, so people are saying water signs, mostly water signs. Yes, so all of the water signs are represented here in this chart. But really the most common denominator, the one sign that has something in common with all the other signs, is Pisces, because Virgo is opposite of Pisces in the zodiac. So all of these planets have a relationship with Pisces in some way. Scorpio and Cancer obviously have a relationship with Pisces because they're all water signs, but Virgo has a relationship with Pisces because they're both mutable signs. So we're not going to get into any more of this, but this is kind of an example of once you start noticing what is showing up in your life, what is prominent energy in your chart, what stories are coming into play. That's what's the greatest thing about astrology. So noticing these patterns. So yes, 43% of the people from our workshop who signed up are water signs. And then we have 19% earth, 16 air, and 22% fire. So, you know, water signs dominated. Woohoo, go water signs. But then we also have a good representation of the other three. So you can kind of think about, how does this show up in your chart? How do these three water signs, who are they sitting at the table? So I chose this image because the water signs are actually in a trine with each other, which is a little which is actually a little triangle. So this is kind of how these people are sitting, right? We have this person looking over at this one, and then I'm sorry, you could probably hear a toddler crying in the background. It is bedtime, so that's probably going on. But anyway, yeah, so you see, like, who out of the three water signs, Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces, who would you think is who, right? Who would you stereotype as being which of these signs? Who's in the middle here? Who would you think who out of the three water signs would you think that would be? And I chose these because they're holding glasses of liquid, right? So these are three water signs. See if we got any, yes, Angel says Pisces. Scorpio, black dress. Good call. You guys got this. Cancer. Pisces in the middle, Scorpio, black dress, Scorpio, black dress. Well, I guess it's green actually. So yeah, I always go for the Scorpio where it's the dark lipstick. Scorpios, either Scorpio moon, Scorpio suns, whatever planet, Venus, even Scorpio, will have, they won't be afraid of that dark lipstick or the dark dress. So yeah, Cancer over here, Pisces, Scorpio. Of course, you can always, whatever version of this table, this conversation, you can picture. You can see different elements. I mean, you can see that she's got like a snake earring. Snakes can be associated with Scorpios as well. So it's just, anyway, that's just a little fun thing. So we are at the end, almost getting deeper, learning astrology and finding your flow. So if you have felt like this is helpful for you, you want to learn more, you feel like you could open some doors to understanding your chart a little bit better. I know there was a lot of information, and if you are feeling overwhelmed, it's good because astrology is chock full of information, and it can be definitely overwhelming. But the more you are able to digest, the more you process it, the more you're able to filter it and relate to your own life, the easier it's going to become. So I'm not going to, lie to you and say that astrology is easy, because it's difficult. But this is going to help you understand how to really relate astrology to your life and how to get more into flow, which is what I call astro flow. It's what I kind of have coined or try to focus on specifically as part of my practice. And what does that mean? It means how to connect to the universe through astrology. So we already talked about observation, learning, intuiting, experiencing, and understanding the story of your chart. That's the best and most pivotal thing you can do when you learn astrology, is have your awareness expand, have your awareness open. Start observing, start marking, start tracking things, start seeing people come into your life and start noticing, how are they interacting with me? How am I interacting with them? And then the acceptance aspect of your chart, looking at the things that you were born with, looking at the planets that are coming into, looking at the conversation that's happening at your table, and really coming into terms with that. There's a lot of things that we like to change about ourselves, but the moment that we start actually accepting what we were born with, who we are, what's not going to change, is the key to happiness, honestly, I think, in life. And when we can start to change, understanding the balance about what you can change and what's written in star ink, as I wrote, alignment, making strategic moves to get yourself in sync with the cosmos. So I like to talk about synchronicity, creating opportunities, using the universe as a responsive, energetic thing that you are making decisions with. So like the co-creation idea, that's what alignment really means. So the best way to learn, right? We talked about working with books is difficult. But why? We don't have any feedback. So having feedback is the best way to learn astrology, because you can ask questions on your chart, you can take notes of transits and get answers. Working with other people in a community, you can start sharing your charts with people, you can start talking about things. Anyone who's in an astrology group or community, or sort of, yeah, group or community, can join others in a non-threatening and supportive environment. That way you don't have to feel like you're the only one who's confused or the only one who doesn't know what's happening. You don't have to be alone in this. And then understanding. So experience, research, tracking, observation, that really is the fast track to astrology knowledge. So like I said, even though we did go through this workshop, and this is my opinion of this super simple method to get to understand astrology, by breaking it down into a story, by understanding real archetypes in your life, by modern day representations of like the gods and goddesses, astrology really is a lifelong study. There's so much you can learn, but it does get easier and more enriching as you gain experience and breakthroughs. So hopefully you've had a few breakthroughs and you've had a little bit more of an eye-opening experience to looking at your chart in a totally different way. And how, if you're interested in taking the next steps, I would love to invite you to the 2022 Orbit. It's a membership program where we start learning astrology together. We start tracking with the Wandering Star Planner. You all get a copy of that. And I have members who have been there from 2021 already, but I'm going to be opening up a wait list. Some of you have already seen that. Some of you already are on the wait list. So if you want to get on that wait list, and so as soon as the membership opens in January, you will have the option of getting on there as soon as possible. So I will drop the link in the chat if anyone would like to do that. And oops, wrong, everyone. So the Orbit will launch the first week of January, and that way you will have access to all of the stuff inside the membership. We will get you one of the planners sent out to you. It's actually a hard copy. So if you would like to sign up for that, just to be on the wait list to see when it's coming, and to have the opportunity to join as soon as it opens up in January, then that's the link that I just put in the chat. What happens in the Orbit? Well, we are going to be launching that first week. You get horoscopes. You can have the astrology tracking. We're going to be doing live workshops next year to actually understand how to use the planner. I'm going to actually have Esme, who is the creator of the planner, come on and teach us a little bit. We can ask her questions, do a little interview with her. We always do a new moon circle every single month where you can bring your chart and we can do little mini readings. It's really great. So lots of stuff happening. There's a little bit of a description on the page. If you have questions, you can definitely put that in the Facebook group. But thank you. I just want to thank you all for coming. I know this went a little bit longer. 90 minutes. We are at 90 minutes. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions specifically, you can put them in the chat. We probably won't be talking too much about your own individual chart, but if you have something that you want to bring up, then I will definitely look at that. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy this, and it will sort of gives you a little bit more just insight into your chart and how you can look at it in sort of a creative way. So thank you so much all for coming, and you will have access to this webinar or this workshop in the Facebook group. So if you missed it, I hope you all are watching it. If you have been commenting on it in the chat or in the Facebook group, I apologize because I wasn't able to see it, but I really appreciate all of you coming, and I hope I will see you soon. So I don't think we have any questions or anything. So yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I'm super excited about the upcoming new year. So I will be back in the chat and in the Facebook group, and we will be talking a little bit more. So I will talk to you all later. So have a good night. Bye.